New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And hello again, dear ones. Rev Brz with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is New Thought Today, coming to you from our individual studios live from Colorado. And it's Tuesday afternoon. We do this every week here at 2 o'clock just for you, so that we can get a chance to talk about the future of New Thought and how New Thought serves humanity's future. For those tuning in expecting to see Reverend Dr. Dennis Merrit Jones with us today, we apologize. Not exactly. We've lost communication with Dr. Dennis and not exactly sure what's going on, but we're going to trust and know that he is well, safe, and it's just a technical glitch or a scheduling oversight. One way or the other, we're about to dig in and have a great conversation around the future of New Thought. And, you know, as we were getting prepared here, I thought to myself, Z, we've created this new list now. We've in the past, we've kind of, all right, we'll shoot from the hip as far as questions with people. And we've been trying to create a series of questions that really dig in to not only our topic, but provide our guests with a chance, well, maybe to prepare a little bit, but also to have an idea what we're getting into here. And the very first question we keep asking everybody is, how do we define spirituality? And so I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah. And that is an interesting and paramount question, because I think first and foremost, oftentimes I believe that people mix up spirituality and religion. And so right out the gate, I wanted, from my perspective and understanding, I want to state the differences in that spirituality is that overarching understanding, awareness, and connection to a divine intelligent spirit, the source of all things, and how you have a relationship and develop a relationship with that would be spirituality. And religion are various paths or various tools, if you will, or tool sets that allow you to have that connection with the spirit. And so, spirituality is in a nutshell, from my perspective, would be a set of communication tools, awareness tools, observation tools, and feeling tools to make you aware of, one, that there is supreme intelligence in the universe, and that, as Ernest Holmes says, and we can use it.
Yeah. Amen. And that's not a religious term, folks. But I want to agree with you in a lot of ways. Obviously, one, we both happen to be in the same spiritual tradition, but we come to it from different sides or from different lived experiences. Let's say it that way. For me, I've long said that the only thing in the world to be religious about is our own spirituality. Because spirituality by its very nature is, just as you're saying, it's my own individual relationship with the divine. And I'm going to resonate with different practices a little bit more. As we learned last week on this program with Reverend Dr. David Alt, it's all process. And some processes I'm going to enjoy a little bit more. Some processes I might embrace a little bit more. But ultimately, it comes back down to how I approach that relationship with the divine. We'd love to hear from you as well.
Yes.
How do you define spirituality? How do you look at your own relationship with the divine? Feel free to chat along, drop a comment in the conversation. We do want to hear from you. We love hearing from our viewers, and that'll actually make this conversation go a whole lot smoother today too, as we don't have our our scheduled guest. But ultimately, so Z, help share with everybody. You've got a much more diverse background and lived history when it comes to spirituality and to religion. So if you don't mind, share with everybody a little bit of how you got to New Thought.
Sure. You know, as some of you may know, I was born in the South, so I had a couple of experiences with Southern Baptists and African Methodist religious traditions growing up, and you know, like a good Christian boy, if you will, I've sung in the choir and was on the junior usher board, and you know, all those things to get you involved in church life. And then as I reached my late teens, I became a little dissatisfied with the questions or the answers I was getting for the questions I was answering. And I began searching for another way, and eventually landed on Islam, converted to Islam, and practiced Islam for, I don't know, 25 years or so. And then found myself at a religious science church, and had an epiphany that, you know, at the spiritual level, it's all the same. I could have stayed a Christian and been happy. I could have stayed a Muslim, and which I still consider myself to be an Islamic religious scientist. But I think what I found out was that the spirituality, which is that ultimate question we asked in the beginning, meaning that language and awareness that there is something greater than us that we have the ability to have direct contact with, was present in all of these religious systems. But unfortunately, each one of the systems began to think that they were the only way up the mountain. And we know, especially here in Colorado, if you go hiking, there are many different ways up the mountain, not just one way. Now, there may be one that may be for some people easier, but it is definitely not the only way. And so I came to that conclusion and said, hey, I like this. And so some of the religious rituals and precepts and things from an Islamic tradition, I still hold on to. But from a spiritual perspective, I rely heavily on religious science, which in its infancy and in its beginning, it came as a vessel to bring all of the religions together to do exactly that, to show that golden thread that runs through all.
Beautiful. You know, you remind me, we've got this here in our banner stack that religious science, and this is truly Ernest Holmes's definition of religious science, is a correlation of the laws of science, opinions of philosophy, and the revelations of religion applied to human needs and aspirations. So religion, and I've always loved this as well, as also because it takes us beyond the pseudo spirituality, if you will. It helps us to better define what exactly our own spirituality is, but it adds in the science piece, it adds in the philosophy. And I've also heard New Thought called a philosophy, a faith, and a way of life. Now, our dear friend Shay is here with us today. She's saying her definition, the knowing of the presence of God through meditation, serendipity, peak experiences, demonstrations of affirmative prayer, and many other great things. So for Shay, thank you for sharing. It's that knowingness of the presence of God and how we come to know that presence, how we come to feel and experience that presence. For some, it'll be through the scientific process. For others, it's through a philosophical process. For others, it's through a process of that religious piece that says, "Hey, it's Sunday, we go to church," right? And or hey, it's Wednesday night, we're going to go to church, or those different pieces. So a rich topic that we've got here, and
someone asked me this actually. As I'm sitting here, just asked me this question on Sunday, actually, and one thing I used to kind of show the difference. I says, if you look at the life of Jesus, often in the Bible it talks about Jesus going off in the wilderness to meditate and pray.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the life of Prophet Muhammad, you talk about Prophet Muhammad going into the cave to meditate, which is where he had his first encounter to reveal the Quran. When you talk about Buddhism, Buddha went and sat under the Bodhi tree and meditated, and he got his enlightenment. So here are three different religions with three different founders, if you will, that all use one tool to tap into a tapestry of infinite intelligence and wisdom that was consistent, but the methodology in which they did their meditation was different. So, which eventually became religion. So those tool sets is one vessel, if you will, of how you can tap into that knowingness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've always loved the fact that, and just as you're sharing, right, all three turn to the silence.
Yes.
They didn't turn to their trusted advisors. They didn't turn to a book. They didn't turn to a school. Now, many of them, did go to different mystery schools and things of that nature. But the enlightenment piece, that piece of awareness, happens in the silence, happens in the stillness, happens when we, I believe, honestly approach the divine and say, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but I'm pretty sure I don't have all the power, but I'm pretty sure there's something somewhere that does know what's going on."
Yes.
And I would personally love to find a Bodhi tree. I'd love to have my own Bodhi tree and just sit underneath it all day long. But we don't have to do that, right? We can find that silence, that stillness in any moment and at any time.
Yes. And that's when we have true enlightenment, if you will, or true awareness that takes place, because it is not something, and we talked a little bit about this before, it's nothing that you have to be beholden to somebody else for.
Right.
It becomes, as they say, it becomes a personal relationship between you and the divine intelligence.
Yep. And truthfully, I think I've said it more than, if somebody tells you exactly how to get to heaven, run. Keep your money in your wallet and go the other way. If somebody tells you this is exactly what you have to do to reach enlightenment, run, turn the other way and get out of there. Because again, we're all going to approach this from a different way. Shay says for her, it was science. Found God in my junior year of high school looking into a microscope. Yes, we can see the divine intelligence at work in that. For others, it is that nature piece of seeing a leaf, watching the grass grow, watching the animals, and watching the. I've always been so inspired by that intuitive nature of the animals on this planet. That all right, a fire's coming, they know to get out of the way. They don't sit there trying to drive into it. They don't sit there saying, "Wait a minute, save my TV." They say, "There's fire. There's something wrong. I'm getting out of here," and off we go.
Yeah, and that's the essence of it. I think I often say that if we really want to get in touch with God and the divine scripture, if we will, is spend some time in nature. Watch the weather patterns. Watch the movement of the ocean. Watch the habits of the animals, and we will begin to see a divine tapestry of oneness that is everywhere present. Yeah. And it's not until we start moving away from that we lose touch with that awareness that we are connected to not only everything around us, but the creator of all that everything as well.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because I heard this again. I watch a lot of those news clips on YouTube. I watch these guys that share all the funny gaffes that politicians make or pull out all the things they say, and we hear it again and again and again, this drumbeat that America specifically is in the midst of a great separation, that there is this deep divide within the American population. Now, some are going to draw it along the lines of red and blue. Some are going to draw it along the lines of on gender. Some are going to draw it along the lines of guns. Some are going to draw it along the lines of race. But ultimately, we keep hearing, and I think the American public are inundated with the argument of us versus them in whatever form and whatever way it is. And being in a philosophy that teaches oneness, this becomes a great challenge, because on the surface, there's a lot more evidence for the separation than there is for the unity.
Yeah.
How do we get back to the unity?
Well, I was just reflecting on something that I read, talking about the roots of New Thought, if you will, and that started back in the 19th century, and one of the paramount things that it used as a cornerstone was the transcendentalism, transcending, right, to go above or beyond what is currently present, so that you can find a better vision, right? If I'm stuck in the middle of it, I may get stuck in the details and I can't see the broader picture, and I may give up right at the moment I'm about to break through, right? So we can transcend. That gives us that opportunity to connect back to a bigger vision, to a wholer perspective. And then the other thing that was paramount in the beginning of this movement was personal healing. Now, that's quite different from personal motivation, which a lot has crept into. But personal healing, whether it was mental or physical, was a key component of this New Thought movement of how do I become in touch with if I cut myself, there's an intelligence in the body that knows how to heal that. It puts some blood there, and then the blood becomes a scab, and then the skin comes and grows back and so forth. So there is an intelligence in the body that knows how to heal itself, given the proper attention to it in a timely manner and the understanding of the process, as we used earlier. So that becomes this cornerstone that I think we need now to have this transcendent moment and this personal healing thing together to really get an understanding of what's wrong at all levels, and then begin to implement these practices that allow us to heal physically, emotionally, mentally, socially. I mean, pick one. Once we can see the whole picture, we know how to address the problem, which is what happens in medicine now. They may give you a pill, but they say, yeah, you need to do a little more exercises. You need to get a little bit more fresh air. You might need to take this vitamin. You might need to drink a little more water. So it's not just, oh, we're going to look at this one thing. We got to look at all things that support it. And I think that's what we have to get back to.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to state it. And it really strikes, and it reminds me that in all of these social ills, we keep hearing that drumbeat that, well, it's not a gun problem, it's a mental health problem. Well, it's not a this problem, it's a mental health problem. Even Texas Governor Abbott has now gotten on board of, well, it's a mental health problem. We got to solve the mental health crisis. Let's be truthful, folks. We created the mental health crisis by denying that there was that anybody would need mental health a couple of decades ago when we started closing all the hospitals that help people. And
yes,
and I know as a fact here in Colorado, there's a huge void in the capacity of the mental health system, especially when we talk about minors, anyone under the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to get mental health services for our youth is become harder and harder and harder. And so what better way to prove these principles, really, than to start using what we teach towards the healing of what people want to call a mental health crisis? How about we call it a mental health opportunity? And, I remember calling in as a mental health day when I just wanted an extra day off. But let's get this is like downloading as we talk here, folks. So I think there is a great opportunity right now for New Thought folks of all stripes, religious science, divine science, unity movement, whatever we want to call ourselves, to get back to that point of using these processes and principles to bring ourselves to a greater perspective, vision, understanding of oneness, rather than to continue to say, well, it's a this problem or it's a that problem, and we got to leave this to the psychologists and the people that are already overworked and don't have the capacity to help everybody that needs it.
Well, you bring up a couple good points there. One, the other piece that I did mention there, you made me think about it, is that the New Thought movement was a movement started on practical spirituality, meaning that you had to be involved in it. You couldn't just have this ethereal ideas because that wouldn't do it all. I'd get halfway there, but you got to do something else. The other thing, when you're talking about psychology, if you go back to the founder of the psychology movement, Dr. William James, right, who was he was a medical doctor, taught at Harvard. He is the father of psychology because in modern day time anyway, his whole thing was talking about these variety of religions, this variety of religions. And so he emphasized this whole idea of how do we get involved. And there was a question I saw about was there ever unity? There is definitely unity, because when you look at a flower, you're also looking at all the minerals that went up the stem or helped the seed grow into the flower. You're also looking at the bumblebees and the butterflies that help pollinate that thing to make it blossom and bear fruit. You're also looking at the water that went in, the sun that went in. So right in that one thing, there is a unity going on of all these other things that without them, the flower would not be. And so, again, it's a matter of changing the perspective of your lens to see what you see, or to incorporate things that may not be obvious, but are definitely present.
Yes. And I love how you use the word lens there, because that is really important. Lenses get dirty. Lenses, yes. They collect stuff. And that's part of what's there. But it also, a lens can distort the truth and can distort how we then approach the truth. So has there ever been a unity?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Somewhere along the line, individually, we find a reason, or the lens gets a little dirty, something happens in the next, and we make up a story about that unity rather than turning back and saying, wait a minute, hold on. It can't be a separation here. It's got to be the unity has to be here somewhere. So keep looking,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and that's, we've had this story articulated to us many times. Whether you talk about the five blind men trying to describe the elephant, or all these different stories in that vein, that basically says we can only see the world. Well, not that we can only see, but that we only see the world from the lens or from the perspective that we are coming from. To get a different perspective, we move to another place on the 360-degree circle to get a different perspective or a different appreciation. And so when we separate into these different classes and groups and stuff, they do have their purpose, right? Because I definitely want a cardiologist, somebody who's understood the heart, to work on my heart if I got a problem as to working on my foot. However, the guy who does the footwork, he needs to know about the heart pumping blood to the foot. And the person who's doing the work on the heart needs to know about the foot to tell you need to exercise to make your heart stronger. So it's just a perspective. And we really have to begin, I think, to go back to that and look for places of connection as opposed to places of separation. And right now, it appears that this whole idea of separation is on the rise.
Sure. Yes, and I can absolutely see it. I saw a post today. It said, "Is it child abuse to allow my child to go to the mall alone? Is it child abuse to allow them to go to school? Is it child abuse to allow them to shop in a supermarket on their own?" And right, and that's coming. It's a great question, because it does make us think, and it does open our eyes. That I looked it up earlier. Based on the number of mass shootings that we've experienced in the United States thus far this year,
Mm-hmm.
which is somewhere around 185. So the good
Wow.
news is we've only got about 350 more to get through before the end of the year.
I was just going to say, that question, if, and I know times are different, but growing up, for me, once I left the house, my dad was like, right from wrong. There's no way I'm going to keep track of you every second of where you are. And I'm not going to worry myself to worry about it, but you know how to behave. You know how to assess situations because I taught you.
Right.
Go and do what you need to do, right? I mean, experience life, because we know that's, to get in the fight with my best friend about who's going to, ride the bike first or whatever. These kinds of things are what help us learn to live with one another and to have disagreements and make them and excuse me, and recover from those types of things, which are going to happen.
Right.
And then the other thing, the last thing I on that is that I thought about, again, that whole thing on spirituality. We haven't even talked about the metaphysical aspect of New Thought, where we go beyond the physics and we start using some of the principles of New Thought, which are things like correspondence and polarity and those things that have a broad sweep in terms of concepts, but different laws are extracted from those principles to allow us to know how to navigate the world. And we have to get back to that.
Yes, exactly. And we are going to get back to that right after this break, folks. So we need to take a quick break, let our sponsors and some of our partners say hello, let you know a little bit more about what's going on around the network. If you wonder what you're wandered into here, this is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. My dear brother, Reverend Elzia Sekou, and I get together every Tuesday. But let us give our sponsors a couple of minutes. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Hit the like button, share button, subscribe button. Let your friends and family know what we're doing. We've got a whole bunch more coming in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Happy birthday, Camp Cedar Ridge. We invite you to come camp and celebrate our first year while in sacred service. May 19th through the 21st, we'll be restoring our beloved meditation labyrinth. Come camp with us for the weekend, and all we'll ask you to cover are the meals. Vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options are available. That's the weekend of Friday, May 19th to Sunday, May 21st. You can bring your own tent or act fast and register for one of our glamping tents or bunkhouse beds while supplies last. We do have limited indoor accommodations for an additional fee. Find more details and registration at campcedarridgeor.org/lab.
And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. Thank you for being with us, folks. Before the break, Reverend Elzia brought up a great point, and that is that when we start to look at this, at the definition or the experience of spirituality, we do have to remember the metaphysical aspect. And, I've been playing that advocate today, throwing out a lot of things that aren't the metaphysical aspect of it, that the things that it's easy to get trapped into and go down the rabbit holes of the humanness of it. But as Z puts in the chat there, metaphysics refers to the study of fundamental nature of being and reality as it is in its wholeness. And that's what I hear you saying, Z. We got to get back to the garden. And back to that sense of wholeness and oneness that says, hey, yeah, there are people out there with guns, and I'm divinely protected. I'm a part of this thing called the divine. And when we know our purpose, when we know what we're here to do, it seems it's an awful lot easier to stay in that metaphysical perspective, if you will.
Yes, because, there is no way. Well, I'll take that back. The probability of you learning how to swim by watching somebody else swim and reading some books and watching some film is very low in relationship to you jumping in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can get some techniques and you can get some, insights, which are all great. But to actually learn to swim, you got to get in the water. You got to get into the wholeness of this idea called swimming, right? So it's the same for us. If we want to get into this whole idea of living with its integratedness to all that there is, we got to jump in it. And we can't, we can't start separating things. Well, I like this and I don't like that. And I want this, but I don't, there's no way to eat food that, well, I'll take that back now because we do have hydroponics, but in terms of growing, if you have a problem with dirt, right, and let's just assume hydroponics don't live, just for the point, you wouldn't be able to eat vegetables or fruits or whatever because they grow in dirt, right? So I have to take the wholeness of it to really embrace it. I mean, it may be a kind of a lame brain example, but I think it gets the point across that we have to live life on life's terms.
Yep. It reminds me of a story of a woman driving down the road, and she gets cut off she's about to make a left-hand turn, and somebody swoops in front of her, cuts her off, and they get stuck at the red light, and she freaks out. And she's swearing and yelling at the guy in front of her. Now, he can't hear her, obviously. They're sitting in two different cars, but she's freaking out. And the next thing she knows, there's a knock on the window, and she looks next to her, and there is a cop with his gun drawn. She's like, what's going on? He's like, well, I saw the world peace sticker and the coexist sticker on the back of your car. So the way you were acting, I figured this had to be stolen.
Yes.
But we see that far too often, where our spirituality gets left in the pew, if you will, on Sunday mornings, where we go and I see this in metaphysical churches all the time. We use Sunday as a way to, quote, recharge or remind ourselves of our divinity, but that doesn't last long if we're not practicing daily. And we call it daily spiritual practice for a reason. We don't call it Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday spiritual practice.
And as we said a little earlier, that's why this idea, this philosophy is a practical spirituality. Right. And we know if there's anything that you want to be good at, you have to practice. You look at Michael Jordan, you look at Pacello, you look at some of these great chefs now that they have, on TV with the food program. They, again, there are those anomalies where someone wakes up in the morning and boom, they can do it. But for 90% of us, if we want to get good at something, you have to practice.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to do with living life holistically. We can't get we can get upset, but we can't let that upsetness stop us when I try to make the pineapple upside down cake and it don't work out.
Exactly. My kids broke out a chess set recently, and they've let it sit around, and we started sitting down, and I realized suddenly my youngest is kicking my butt, like, and pulling me into these traps and all this kind of stuff. And I said, where'd you learn all this? He said, I've been playing online. You've been practicing. See, I haven't been practicing. I just rely on the fact that I'm an old guy and I used to play and I know a little bit and not enough to be any good, really. Let's be honest. But enough to hold my own here and there. And suddenly this young 15-year-old's running circles around me on the chessboard because I'm out of practice.
Yep. And that is, that is a great metaphor for life, that if we get out of practice in life, life starts kicking our butt.
Yep.
and then we blame life because we didn't practice. And at best you want to get to a draw. A good chess player said, look, if I can't win, I want to get a draw. All right, let's start over. Let's start the thing.
Exactly. At least I don't have to resign. And I'm reading a book right now. I think a lot of people in the movement are, called The Four Pivots. We talked a little earlier about the lensing. And in the Four Pivots, he talks about lens versus a mirror.
Yes.
Because a mirror is that practice of self-reflection. And this is what we're talking about now here as well. We have got to be willing to be self-reflective. And my young one held a mirror up to me that said, I'm not practicing my chess. I haven't practiced my chess game. We have to be willing to be reflective and say, where am I not practicing? Where have I kind of sat back on my laurels, as it will? Where am I just going with what I've always believed rather than actually questioning and saying, wait a minute, does that belief still serve me? Does that belief still serve to move me forward? We were having a conversation before this about the recent announcement out of California and the bill regarding reparations. And I'll be straight up. I'm all for reparations, but I have yet to hear or see what I think is a system that could work. Because everything that I've always been exposed to is, well, we can't give money directly to people. That doesn't work. We got to give money to different charities or organizations, or we got to create these new things and this and that and the other thing. And none of that actually seems to, none of it seems to come forward. But now what you were sharing with me earlier is California does have a bill to pay direct reparations to people, and in a pretty good sum from what I understand. And for me, I had to let go of the old belief, what I've always thought, in order to be open to, well, what wants to be.
Yeah. And taking a side note on that, just, the burden, according to the way I've understand in California, the burden of proof is going to be on the person to prove that they're a direct descendant of a slave. Now, we know we're going to get into some sticky ground because before up until 1870, African Americans were just either names or numbers, first names or numbers, right? So, you got to have some stories and pictures or some DNA to prove it. But the one thing about that is, again, you got to get involved. You can't take it for granted. You have to be, as they say, you got to be in it to win it.
And willing to suspend my old beliefs when presented with new evidence. This is something I think we see a lot of is, if I hear any, so many people out there now, anything that doesn't sound exactly like my talking point is immediately discarded because, no. I know what's right. I know what that is. We have to be more open and willing to say, hey, hadn't thought of it that way. Or let's bring back some critical thinking and say, okay, if that were true, what would that mean? How could that work? How can we make it easier for people to prove that number back there was actually their great grandfather?
Right. Because we know that no one organization or no one philosophical idea has a monopoly on the truth.
Right.
We know that. And so it behooves us to widen, if anybody has a phone, I know because everybody take pictures on their phone, you can get your wide angle lens and you can get your zoom in lens. And the picture you come up with your zoomed in versus your panoramic is totally different. You may get confused about where you are depending on the aperture, if you will, of that lens. And so we have to start playing with the aperture of our lives a little bit, expanding it and contracting it so that we begin to get better perspective and depth of field, as they say in the photography world, to understand what we're dealing with, to understand life wholeheartedly, because what's clear to me is clear to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy that we're building, because I've got to be willing to look at life through the telephoto lens and look at my life through a zoom, and really drill down to, and Shay's saying it in a great way, is my personality in alignment with my spirit?
Yes.
right? Good for you, Shay, for being able to say, yeah, my personality is in line with my spirit. Now, I believe a lot of people in the New Thought movement can say that as well. And what we know is, well, spirit is, but my understanding of that spirit changes. Yes. So again, I have to be willing to go beyond what I've always believed or what I've always thought and be open to a greater revelation. That's, to me, the metaphysical aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, and a perfect example, imagine the evolution, if you will, or the evolution of revealing of energy. Energy went from a wave or the wind to E equals MC squared, right? There was this expanding and contracting on the idea of what energy is, which some use as a synonym for the divine, that says, hey, depending on your perspective and the need at the time, it can be many things. If I want to take a sailboat and go sailing, I want a gentle wind. I don't want hurricane wind, although it's the same kind of energy that produces both.
Right. Now we're getting into quantum physics, folks. The particle and the wave. And what we learned from quantum physics is energy is potential until observed. It is both the wave and the particle until it is observed by some essence, if you will, or someone. So we get back to that both and piece, and we've got to be open to that.
Yeah. And so, there goes the journey, right? We look at the journeys. I was speaking the other day about, made reference to the book, The Alchemist. And for those of you who may not have read that book, it's a great book about the journey, and the revealing of this energetic force or this intelligent force, whereas a shepherd in Spain has this vision and he winds up going to Egypt to try to find this treasure. And there goes the journey, is that for him to even determine if that's a reality, he has to put himself in motion and get involved with that journey, with that idea. And that's what we have to do if we have these visions of, as we say, a world that works for all.
Well, folks, this is what happens when our guest doesn't show up. For whatever reason, again, no blame, no shame there. We get to just kind of go with it and see where spirit takes us, and no judgments about that. No shame about, hey, this is where spirit wanted this conversation to go today. And so we're allowing it to take us wherever it wants to take us, to be open to that journey. Where it is going to take us is another quick break to say thank you, this time specifically to our sponsors and donors and those that make this network happen financially. We're going to take just a break, just a quick minute. We'll be back with more. We've got our final thoughts and plus a little bit more coming here on New Thought Today. Please stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors and donors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, and all of our individual donors and sponsors. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please come be you. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, dear ones, for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Every donation goes a long, long way to helping to share this message out into the world, to get this philosophy into the hearts, the minds, and the ears and the eyeballs of more and more people. This ministry is growing by leaps and bounds. And again, every dollar goes a long, long way to help get this message out. So thank you for being a part of that. If you'd like to join in and get your name on the next version of our video, could just head on over to the website ntmedia.org, click on that donate button, and make a donation of any amount. Make it a monthly, and we'll a recurring monthly donation will get your name on the next video. So, all right, Z, before we run out of time here today, I think we would kind of be remiss if we didn't take a look at how all this that we've been talking about, how can we turn this and how can we use this knowledge and this philosophy, new thought, into something that really does serve humanity's evolution, that serves humankind as we navigate what's coming as what's coming our way in the future decades here.
Yeah, that I mean that's the paramount question right now, right? How do we turn this back into a practical spirituality? And you know, I think there's a bunch of ways, but I think immediate ways for those who are ready to stick their toe in and those who are ready to jump in wholly, you know, find a study group, find a book club, find a think tank or create a think tank environment where you begin to get with other people of like and unlike ideas and have discussions. Begin to talk about these ideas and how they can be implemented. And then for those as you move up the scale, find a group that's doing some action, whether it's volunteering to help literacy at a school or to clean up a neighborhood or to go and spend time with some elderly in the senior homes who may need some company. I mean, these are practical things. They're easy things, so to speak. You don't have to put yourself in danger and any of that. It's about getting involved, sharing love, caring, and learning from different perspectives so that ultimately we begin to see we're all connected. And you know, there's the Native American saying that goes, you know, man thinks he is separate, and that's the majority term, separate from the web, but he is a part of the web, and anything you do to the web, you do to yourself.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, we generally do final thoughts at the end of the show, but I think we just did one right there, and I love it, which is good because we're rapidly approaching the end of our allotted time anyway. And I want to agree with you, and I want to double down on that. Many of the people that watch this program might already be part of a spiritual community. You might already have an organization that you belong to, whether it's a Centers for Spiritual Living community or a Unity community or any type of spiritual community. And that's a great start. And is your community working towards following through? Putting the pedal to the metal, letting your personality be aligned with your spirit. There's a lot of great talk that happens and a lot of great talks that happen on Sunday mornings. But I think the real key, the real essence to the question is, what am I doing with that come Monday morning? What am I doing with that on Tuesday afternoons? How am I demonstrating my belief in this philosophy out into the world? And Spirit just threw a great quote in my head by the minister emeritus, which is Reverend Dr. Fred Vogt. He once said, if you were hauled into a court of law charged with being a religious scientist, would there be enough evidence to convict you? If you are hauled up in front of your peers and need to prove that you are a spiritual person, that you have a spiritual life, is there enough evidence to prove that? I'm proud to say I believe I would, yes, absolutely. I know that same for you, Rev Z. And for everyone else out there, hey, those that are watching and commenting along, Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing today. Again, we're so sorry that we weren't able to have Dennis Merrit Jones with you, and we'll look to get him rescheduled at another time in the future. Until then, we're going to get out of here for now, but we want to, again, thank you for being with us. And until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.